In this episode, we're looking back at what has to be one of the most prolific bands of all time. Tons of hits, but they never topped the charts. Stay with us for Creedence, Clearwater, Revival.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff. And Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast, your home for music and movie entertainment. Fun facts, knowledge, debates, right? Top fives. I mean, you know, when you spread it out on the table, there's a lot there, I think. Yeah. Live shows. I mean, this is an industry. This is like the workers in Metropolis. They're all like, each one is like turning a gear that makes the podcast go.
Yeah, it's definitely has grown into something. It's like a thing. It grows, it morphs into something else, and from one thing to another.
That's why we have all those workers. We have all those workers in the factory helping create this podcast, stitching together our words and then putting them in digitally to make it. If you guys didn't know how it works, that's how a podcast works. It takes a lot of people. Yeah. We're just the two front-facing ones, but there's actually nobody else behind us. It's just us two.
We're just a couple.
Just two guys in a room, in separate rooms, actually, not even in the same state.
Yeah,
that's the wonder of technology. That's
we've been doing this how long now? This is our third year, and we still have not done a single episode live in person.
Yeah, we came close, but we were actually on vacation. But I'm like, I don't want to do it. We're on vacation, like we're on vacation. I didn't want to do like a.
I think that was
I don't want to sit in a room. That was 2021. That was the first year.
Yeah, that was our first. I think we were only in it for like a month or two. We're already on vacation.
3-4 months, and it's like, Eric's like, let's do a podcast episode. So I brought the stuff, and then I'm like, we're hanging out. I haven't seen the dude in person in years. It's like I don't want to sit across the table and do what we do each week.
Yeah.
So we went to the Star Trek Experience studio tour, which was much more invigorating and fulfilling than
because I had never been. That was fantastic.
So it was a lot of fun. So we will put together some type of a live thing at some point. It's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah, I just need another warm body next to me.
Okay, I'm not sure. We can arrange that. That doesn't have to be me. I can have.
It's just
somebody in your area.
You know what I mean? I want the interaction live. I don't.
Okay.
It's kind of lonely in the room.
I thought you were asking for something else.
No.
Said you want a warm body.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
I didn't say anything. Everybody will read into it what they will. So before we get too far afield from what we're doing. This is going to be one of those overview episodes because originally, when I reached out to Eric, I'm like, hey, Creedence.
Yeah.
There's two albums. Let's kind of circle around these two particular albums. And he's like, yeah. And then I'm kind of looking at it, I'm like, yeah, you know what? There's a story here that there's an overarching story about this band and a couple of different threads. Some of them are really not good. So we're going to get into that too. It's actually one of the worst stories in rock and roll, probably. It's one of the most horrible stories, but don't let the music betray that. So the band we're talking about is Creedence Clearwater Revival. They were active only for 4 years. You're going to have to keep this in mind. This is going to be a very important stat.
Yeah.
They were active for 4 years, 1968 to 1972. They were formed in El Cerrito, California. So they are another important thing. They are a California band. Okay. They've sold over 28 million records. Their greatest hits compilation called Chronicle came out in 1976. It's 10 times platinum, and it's still on the charts now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you're going to come away with this episode and say, well, what should I do? Where should I start? Just Chronicle is available on Spotify and streaming. So just find Chronicle, and it'll give you, that's where I started actually.
Oh, sure.
Was with
Chronicle. That's the only thing I ever had.
Yeah. Before that, it was just kind of like that gives you the overview and it gives you a really good jumping off point. Mm-hmm. They had 14 consecutive top 10 singles. And a few of those were double A sides. So for instance, like Down on the Corner was a top 10 single. The flip side of it was Fortunate Son. So that's a double A side.
Yeah.
Looking Out My Back Door with Long As I Can See the Light, another double A side. So they were pretty prolific here. But oddly enough, they never hit number one.
Crazy.
They never. So with all those 14 consecutive top 10 singles, and some were double A sides, they never hit number one. But they had 5 number 2s.
Oh.
5 times they hit number 2 and could not
get that one. Wow.
Could not push through to the end, which is crazy. Crazy. Yeah. Another incredible stat: 5 consecutive top 10 albums. 2 of those hit number 1, which was the 2 that we were talking about doing, Green River and Cosmos Factory. You're saying, well, and then if you go back to the original stat of, well, they were active 1968 to 1972. How did they have 5 consecutive top 10 albums? Well, because they released in 4 years, they released 7 studio albums, not compilations. And from 1968 to 1972, they released 7 fucking albums.
That's crazy. Yeah.
I've never heard of a band that prolific. That is the epitome.
3 albums in 69 alone. That's just insane. Yeah.
Is that nuts or what?
Yeah. I'll say.
4 years. Sometimes a band gets 1 album out in 4 years, maybe 2 if it's popular.
Right.
7 albums, no compilations, no live albums. These were 7 studio albums they did in 4 years. Mm-hmm. So that kind of that
Busy
leads
boys.
you.
Yep.
Yeah. It leads you back to the 14 consecutive top 10 singles. This is what you call a very prolific and working band. Mm-hmm. This is, and they were 1993 Hall of Fame inductees. So that kind of rounds out the stats that we're going to give. That kind of tells you a little bit about the story of Creedence. Is 4 years, 7 albums. You're not going to see a lot of growth, meaning like when you look at the discography, you could take 7 albums by any other band and you'd probably see a change. You could take 7. You could take Led Zeppelin was what, 9 albums, 8 albums, 9 albums. Mm-hmm. You could see the change. You could take Yes. You could take Pink Floyd. You could take Fleetwood. You could take any band. 7 albums, you're going to see something. But because this was in such a compressed time frame, they're just banging them out, banging out hit after hit after hit after hit. So they had a formula that they stuck to, which worked, which also led to some problems. So just who is Creedence Clearwater Revival? You've got John Fogerty on lead vocals and guitar, his brother Tom Fogerty on guitar, Doug Clifford on drums, Stu Cook on bass. And these guys in one form or another had been kicking around since 1959. They were the Blue Velvets from 59 to 64. Yeah. They were the Gollywogs from 64 to 67.
Yep.
And then they finally got signed by Fantasy Records, and they were not thrilled with the Gollywogs name anyway. So they took the opportunity to name themselves Creedence Clearwater Revival. And what that means, Creedence, they had a friend whose first name was Creedence. Clearwater was taken from Olympia Beer at the time in the 60s. I guess their ad was like, we make our beer with clear water. And then Revival was them rededicating themselves to the project and rededicating themselves to the music. So hence you have Creedence Clearwater Revival. Interesting.
Absolutely blows my mind that they came from California.
Why? So here we go. You're leading us right in. So yeah. Why that's why I made such a big deal about it. So why do you not believe that these guys are from El Cerrito, California, which is northern? That's like near San Francisco.
Right.
So that's not even Southern California. It's not even LA. This is like Northern California or Middle California. Go ahead.
This music is so steeped in blues and blues rock and swampy. And you would think that they hail from Florida, or perhaps the Carolinas, or,
Alabama, Louisiana.
Alabama. That's right. And wow.
They wear the plaid shirts. They dress like farmers.
Yeah.
And you hit the nail right on the head.
It was you could not peg a more deceptive, sound. Yeah. I mean, like a sound that just is regional. I mean, we're talking regional here. This isn't just, we're just pretend, they literally do sound. I mean, John Fogerty's voice, even, it's like, you would think that he has that that accent, going on in every song almost. It's just,
Yeah, especially if you look at 1968, what was happening in California? The Doors, The Dead,
yeah,
Jefferson Airplane. You had the psychedelic revolution going
that's
on,
right.
and here comes
Yeah.
this band from Northern California with, you said it, this is some of the labels that have been ascribed to them: roots rock, swamp
Yep.
rock, southern rock.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, if you go through if you look at their discography, there are a lot of traditional blues and
Blues
rhythm and
covers.
blues
Yep.
covers that they do as
That's right.
well. I
Yep.
Put a Spell on You, Susie Q,
Yep.
um,
Little Ray Charles, a little,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
Ooby Dooby, and then they do
Oop-a-doop.
Hello Mary Lou from like Rick Nelson as well.
Yeah.
This band was very adept at covers,
Hmm.
and making them their own. So much so, right, that I heard, like, when I first I heard it through the grapevine. I thought it was them.
Yeah.
I thought they wrote it.
Yeah.
I wasn't as aware of the Marvin Gaye version. I was aware of like the Creedence version,
That's
because
right. Yeah.
they made it their own. To that point, John Fogerty wrote Proud Mary, which is the most covered song, which Tina Turner made her own. And we just, as of the recording of this episode, we just lost Tina Turner a week ago.
Yeah.
And Proud Mary was like her calling card.
That's right.
Like that's
Yeah.
her rave up song. I mean, that thing, you look at footage from back in the 60s when she'd do Ed Sullivan or those shows, that was just they, call her Tina the Burner Turner, because
Decidedly much different version.
Yes.
Much, like her version is just the horns and they kick in and it's just,
yeah.
But,
She just took it to a whole nother level. And then,
yeah.
of course, our good friend, Mr. Leonard Nimoy, also did a cover of Proud Mary. He did.
I know.
Big wheels keep on toining. Proud Mary keep on boining. He really put the
Was
accent.
he still on the high from
I don't know
singing
what.
about the hobbits and
Yeah, the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins. So they Creedence really was a band that for me, I'm going to take one of your terms, right? For me, this is like comfort food. Like Creedence, I can listen to any song by Creedence. I can listen to anything, even the non-hits, and it's just comfortable. They're just, John Fogerty wrote everything until a certain point that wasn't a cover.
Mm-hmm.
He's just so adept at that, getting that feeling, right? That, like songs like Looking Out My Back Door has that kind of like country Bakersfield, California feel. Like he name checks Buck Owens in it, and it kind of has that feel to it, that kind of country-ish thing, like you're sitting on a porch relaxing on a hot day.
I would argue that they're very Americana. I mean, there are hints of little things like you just said. There's country in there, kind of woven through some of the music. But would you say that they could be a gateway band to that form of music? If you're just heading into if you're interested in learning about blues and things like that, I would argue that this band, because they do it so well,
I think
this could be a really nice introduction to that form of music, and it would
because they meld it so well.
That's right. Yeah,
you're right. You're absolutely right. They meld the genres so well. So they'll do something greasy and dirty like Susie Q, and really kind of, and that'll be like a long song, like it's like a kind of whole thing. And then they have got these short little things like Down on the Corner, where they're able to really kind of grab into genres like pop and kind of give you something quick and in and out, but then not forgetting their roots, and going to I Put a Spell on You and before you accuse me. I mean, they really go deep into that bag of some of that stuff, but also intersperse it with John Fogerty's great. He really had his finger on the pulse of something different in the 60s. And that's what made Creedence so unique as well, I think, is that they weren't doing anything psychedelic. There was, you said it was like Americana or American,
very roots,
quote unquote American music. This is what it was. It was just kind of straight ahead rock and roll. Songs like Traveling Band that they had, Fortunate Son, which became like a Vietnam era anthem.
Yeah. That's right.
Anti-war anthem. So that kind of helped put them on the map as well with that. And then they've got the most upbeat song about the most depressing thing. Bad Moon Rising. You know, hope you've
Yeah.
got your things together. Hope you're quite prepared to die. But but it is the happiest song ever about like Holocaust and like the world ending. And you
Yeah.
don't even realize it. It's so catchy, Bad Moon
Yeah, it's
Rising.
very prophetic. It's very like he's
It's
looking into
awful.
something.
It is awful, right?
It really
I
is.
see hurricanes and lightning. I see Bad Time Today. You
Oh,
know,
that entire
it's
that's when you asked me like, did you want to do either one of those albums? And
yeah,
I had heard, of course, I like them both.
yeah,
That's Cosmos Factory and Green River. I mean, I if I would have probably chosen Green River,
yeah,
being that there's less hits on it. But that album to me speaks to like late September, like October, like the fall. Like a lot of
yeah.
the songs reflect that sort of that time of year. And Bad Moon
Yep.
Rising, of course, is on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, but you're right. It is decidedly
It's weird. Yeah. It's
different.
like, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah. But yeah,
horrible things, but it's okay. You're tapping your toes. Like, yeah, hope you are quite prepared to die. I'm like, what? Wait, this is
we're
a
in for
pop
some
song.
nasty
It's a
weather.
pop song. Yeah. One
Yeah,
eye
I
is
know.
taken for an eye. Really, like he really kind of fools you. You know, he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, Bad Moon Rising. It's like, no,
Yeah,
this is
I mean,
really a horrible song about.
terrific songwriter, John
Yeah,
Fogerty.
he really was.
Yeah, he
And
really
and
is.
that's where where they kind of that became their how they were going to proceed. You know, they had
Mhm.
gotten signed to Fantasy Records. They had kind of gotten a little bit of a go. And John Fogerty went to everybody and said, "Listen, we were all working in a gas station." And he said, I don't know about you, but I don't want to work in a gas station again." He goes, "So
Yeah,
we need to he basically kind of from the beginning asserted control of the band. Said, "Listen, I'm gonna write everything. I'll pretty much," and he pretty much did almost everything short of playing he did everything but play the instruments that the other guys did. And his brother Tom was in the band too.
hmm
But he just asserted just total control. He goes, we can't blow this basically.
yeah.
So I'm just gonna, I'll take it from here. Was
Well,
he right?
hence the
He was, I mean,
7 album stint.
seven
That
albums is just
that's a lot of
incredible, but
creativity right there. That's just a lot of.
that's a lot, right? That's a burst of creativity that you don't see,
I
especially from essentially one person. This was not a group. You know, it wasn't like everybody had different songs on the albums. If it wasn't a
I
cover, it
wonder
was
if
Fogerty.
how many songs were written. Uh, how many of these songs that he had written before even the first album. I mean, how many were they
Yeah,
recorded?
they probably had Gollywog. They've been around since
They
'59, so I'm sure
well,
they
I'm
had
sure they probably
Gollywogs and
had, parts and
yeah,
different
sure,
variations of the songs.
yeah,
It had to be that way. I mean,
yeah.
I
I'm
can't
sure there was
imagine
stuff.
him just step it into just another writing stint. That's just a lot for anyone.
It is. I mean, yeah, I
You
would
would have
guess
to
that.
lock yourself away for quite a long time to get this many songs written, and then
Unless he's just that good. I mean,
well,
I'm
I don't
sure
know.
they had. I'm sure there was stuff from the Gollywogs. I'm sure that they had stuff that
Yeah.
probably they probably knew what
Probably a
covers
lot
they
of the
were good at.
covers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
They probably said, "We know what we're good at. Let's get these down on tape."
Mhm.
They probably had some of the originals as well, but I don't think he had 7 albums worth of stuff sitting around. I mean, there was, I'm sure there was some material that they reworked, but he also was just
Yeah.
blasting. This is just almost a diarrhea, for lack of a better term, of creativity. No, and I mean that. I don't mean that in a disgusting way. I mean, this
No,
stuff is just.
yeah, I know. Yeah.
I've never heard of a group. I think Chicago might have been the only group that came close. Right? They put out like 4 double albums in a row,
True.
but they didn't do 7 in 4 years.
Right. Yeah. Not even the
The
Beatles.
Beatles didn't do that. Not counting the compilations that Capitol did.
Yeah.
Studio albums, maybe twice, maybe 2 in a year, they might have accomplished, but then it slowed down to pretty much 1 a year. Even the Doors, I think, did 2 in 1 year.
Right.
But seven in 4 years is a pace that is breakneck speed.
Mhm.
But that's probably became part of the problem too. Is they signed like I said at the beginning, they signed a deal with Fantasy Records owned by Saul Zaentz. Movie lovers might know Saul Zaentz as a producer. He produced One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah.
He produced Amadeus, so he's a very savvy businessman. But John Fogerty, to his I guess handicap, signed a horrible deal. He didn't know what he
Mhm.
was doing. He signed everything away. He signed all the rights away to the songs. He didn't know what he was doing. They wanted that deal.
Mm.
So he basically signed away the fortunes of the band at that point but literally made a deal with the devil to get where they were going. And probably that's where the acrimony probably started with Creedence, because in 71, his brother Tom leaves just because of John's grip on the band. John's grip was getting tighter and tighter and more demanding. And Tom Fogerty's own brother says, I'm done. I'm
Yeah.
done. And that album he left was Pendulum.
Mhm.
So then after that in 72, the other two, so he's left. So Stu Cook and Doug Clifford are left and they're like, hey, we want to start writing too. It's not fair. It's not really democratic and give us a shot too. And John Fogerty, their final album was called Mardi Gras, and some people call it John Fogerty's Revenge. But he
Yeah.
was a real prick. He said to them, you guys are going to be responsible for each writing like 2 songs, and I'll write 2 songs. He goes, but I'm not going to help you with it. He goes, I'll play guitar, and that's it. You want to write your own stuff, you do it.
Wow.
And said, I'm just, whatever guitar you need, I'll play, but that's it. That's all you're getting from me. Like almost like, oh, you want it, so here you go.
Yeah.
And Mardi Gras was like they're really tanked. So if you want to take that out of the discography, the 6 albums, and even their first album didn't have anything big on it. There was really like 5 albums that were the meat and potato.
Mm-hmm.
So by 72, Creedence was done, just because of Fogerty's just control. But we've talked about power struggles within bands before. He said it from the beginning, though. This wasn't like an internal late in the game thing. From the beginning, he said, this is how it's got to be, and he was right. In this case, he was right. It's just, didn't go about it the right way, or it got a little, again, you said 7 albums in 4 years. I'm sure that can be intense, an intense amount of output also without any break.
True. Yeah.
Because you're
talking
touring on top of that too.
Didn't seem like there was a whole lot of like a collaboration spirit going on,
Yeah.
just sort of like in there, the band having more input. Him agreeing to that was probably not the thing.
Yeah.
Just said, because it was so fast and so quick, and we had to, we got to get this done, and that kind of thing. So
yeah, and I think he said actually when they first started
situation. Yeah.
No, and I think he said like when they first started recording, like they would do the backing vocals, and he goes, "You guys they're horrible." He goes, "I need to do it myself because otherwise it's not going to be right." Like that's kind of a bitter pill to swallow. I think a little bit when you're being told, you guys,
I'll say,
aren't good.
Yeah.
I'll do it myself. So, but again, he was right. We got Down on the Corner, we got Bad Moon Rising, we got, Who'll Stop the Rain, As Long as I Can See the Light, Lodi, which is one of my favorite. Lodi is like a minor hit, and I just absolutely I love Lodi. But, Proud Mary, Looking Out My Back Door, Green River, Susie Q, Up Around the Bend. Have you ever seen The Rain, Sweet Hitchhiker? There's so many songs he gave rock and roll in such a short time. But it flamed out. That's the tragedy here. And then they try and get, kind of, they got together, I think in 1980 for a wedding, played a personal thing, but
just didn't.
John Fogerty was trying to, at that point in 72, he was done with Fantasy Records. I want nothing to do with you people. You're awful. And he still owed them like a ton more of records. He actually had to sign a worse deal to get out of his contract. So he basically signed everything away. He owned nothing, and he said one day that in the 80s, he saw, I forgot what song they were using in a Levi's commercial, Levi's blue jeans. And he publicly said, he goes, this is, I hate this. I hate what they're doing. And Levi's, to their credit, they're like, we bought the rights to the song. We didn't know that you didn't own it. And if you don't like it, we're not going to use it. So they actually stopped using, I forget what song it was, but they stopped using the song because Fogerty said something, even though Fogerty didn't own the rights anymore. But they were that sensitive to the artist. Like, oh my God, we didn't know that you didn't own them. So
their music has been in tons of movies,
everything. Yeah.
yeah, pretty much, you know.
Yeah. And he refused to play. So when he resurfaced in the 80s with his solo album Center Field,
Mhm.
he refused. He would not play. He would not. I'm not paying. I'm not giving these guys money. I'm not letting him make money.
Yeah.
I'm not paying him. And a lot of people, I think Bob Dylan and a couple other people, had to convince him, like, dude, you got to play this stuff. Like, this is your, whether you're going to make money on it or not, this is your legacy.
Yeah.
You have to play this stuff. And then the tragedy continued because in 1990, his brother Tom would die. He got AIDS from a blood transfusion. Actually, he was getting a back surgery or something. He got a blood transfusion. He got AIDS from the blood, and they never reconciled. Really, they never got a chance to reconcile. So it was that bitter.
Oh, really?
Feud.
That's a shame. That's
Yeah,
really
never
a shame.
reconciled. And then in 1993, Creedence gets inducted, and the three remaining members of there, Fogerty's like, I'm not going up on stage with those two guys.
Why?
So
Why?
Fogerty plays. He goes up on stage to play with like Bruce Springsteen, all-star things, and Doug Clifford and Stu Cook get up and leave.
Wow.
At that point, they get up and they leave.
That's
it was that bad.
Story.
Yeah, this is probably the saddest story, because such a great band and made such great music that time and then Stu Cook and Doug Clifford formed a band called Creedence Clearwater Revisited. They're like, well, we got to go out and we're going to play the songs that we're going to play those songs. We'll get a singer, and Fogerty sued to stop that, and he lost. They're like, no, you guys can do that. And then they're like, we'll never play with Fogerty. We'll never play with Fogerty. And then in the past couple of years, Fogerty's like, well, you know what? Never say never. And these guys are like, forget it. You're like 25 years too late, my friend.
Yeah, good on them.
So it's oh yeah, but it's so heartbreaking. Like
it is. It really is. Yeah.
There's no reason they're still they're still alive. They're still but that acrimony from like we're talking 51 years ago now. 1972, and it was just that. What's
the point of creating a band if you're not going to be a band? That's what gets me.
Well, some people are perfectly fine in that role, right? Some people are perfectly fine being the drummer, and you tell me what to play, and I'm happy. I want to tour. I'm out. I'm okay with that, right? You look at Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, or you look at some of those other bands, right, that have members that are perfectly fine with someone else taking the spotlight. I'm happy to be on stage. I'm happy to play. I'm happy to gig. Happy to do all that stuff, but yeah, I think Fogerty kind of was like, well, you're almost like you're questioning me, and he did have the track record to back it up.
Yeah,
he had the hits, so that's why they said Mardi Gras was like Fogerty's revenge, because he's like, go ahead and do it, see if you can do it. And the stuff wasn't horrible, it just wasn't, and Fogerty's stuff was good. He had like 3 songs on there, and it was good stuff, but yeah, just not the same, and it just.
Center Field, I remember you played the hell out of that album when you first.
You mean this album?
That album right there. There it is. That was nonstop. That was a staple.
Oh yeah. I loved it. And the funny thing about
that
album,
everything on that record, did he not? He was.
He did it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did it all. And this album got him in trouble. This album got him in trouble as well for a couple of reasons. The first cut is the Old Man Down the Road, which was the first single from the album. It's
Yeah.
Saul Zaentz, who owns the Creedence Clearwater Revival catalog, says, you know what? That sounds a lot like Run Through the Jungle, which I own. He goes, you might have written it, but I own it. And it went to court. And the judge is like, you can't plagiarize yourself.
Yeah, right.
So even John Fogerty, even though somebody else owns the rights to the music, the person that wrote it can't really plagiarize yourself.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Perfect sense.
So Fogerty actually won, but then what happened on this album, on the original version, which I'm going to show you guys, the very last track. Let's see if we can get it in focus. For you watching on YouTube, you're getting a bonus. It's called Zaentz Can't
Dance. There it is.
And that is a direct shot at Saul Zaentz. The lyrics, the guy's a pig, he's a thief, he takes all your money. It is not veiled. This is not a veiled shot at Saul Zaentz. So Saul Zaentz sues John Fogerty over the song "Zans Can't Dance," which is obviously about him. It's not a not so subtle swipe at
Mhm.
him because it's got his name in it and about how he's a pig and he's an awful person. He takes all your money, um,
Yeah. Like
which
most
is
movie producers are. Well,
which
did
most
I
of
say
them are.
that?
Yeah. So did you say that out loud? Well, Saul Zaentz, I think, is gone. So there it is. It's called "Zans Can't Dance." So John Fogerty gets sued for defamation, and then what we get is a re-recorded song called "Vans
Dance can't dance.
Can't
Yep.
Dance,"
Okay.
and they settled out of court for that case. So very interesting. John Fogerty kind of got put a little bit in his place. He won his plagiarism suit, but then on center field, he really took a not so veiled swipe at Saul Zaentz.
That's amazing. These
Yeah,
stories are just
yeah. And then
crazy.
I think in the mid 2000s, Saul Zaentz left Fantasy. He sold Fantasy Records,
Mhm.
and like the next day, John Fogerty signs with Fantasy Records. He did.
Wow.
He signed with Fantasy Records, and then I don't know what the wrangling was, but he did get all of the rights. He got all of his songs back.
Nice.
So
Okay.
there's a happy ending there, but um,
But unfortunately, there's
a
some
lot of heartache that they had to, a lot of trials and tribulations. So
some casualties
um,
there as far as the
yeah,
band is concerned, which is a shame.
yeah,
It really
but
is. Yeah.
but getting back to Creedence, and that just we'll put that story away because it's just so horrible. What are some of the favorites that you have? What are some of the favorite Creedence?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I'm just looking at right now. I'm looking at Green River,
Yeah.
Sinister Purpose. I
Oh,
love.
oh, why did you say that? You
I
son of a
just love.
bitch! You son of a bitch!
I love their
I didn't
cover
think
of.
I didn't think anybody else knew that song but me. And I was like, oh, I'm going to give you a deep cut, and it's called "Sinister Purpose."
Yeah, it
What
is.
the fuck?
That's an amazing song. Yeah.
Oh, it's so like, oh, like
Wrote
I
a
don't.
song for everyone I love as
Yep.
well. It's another great one. I love the Ray Charles cover. The nighttime is the right time, even
Yep.
though the backing vocals are a little suspect there, but wonky. But I could take it. That's cool. Yeah, man. I mean, they're just. I mean, but like you
Yeah.
said, we had the Chronicle. I mean, I
Yeah.
did that a lot. That was
Yeah.
just because they were just such a. They had a sort of.
There's like an innocence to
The
them.
They were
Or-
they were a formidable band. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that as far back as I can remember, these songs got a lot of airplay on the
Oh, yeah.
radio. They were just
Still do. They're still staples
monsters.
of oldies.
You would think that they had been together for much longer
Yeah.
than that.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, and then of course you go to see every other movie had a Creedence song in it.
Yeah, Forrest Gump, and
yeah.
any type of Vietnam thing.
Werewolf in London,
Yeah,
Bad Moon Rising. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean,
I was.
they were on the map as far as the popularity,
Mm.
just the sort of they wrote their own story in the Americana songbook. That just to me is, and it's amazing.
Proud Mary alone. I mean, most
Yeah.
bands would kill just to have Proud Mary.
Yep.
One of the most, not only it's obviously their most covered song, but it's one of the most covered songs of all time. I mean, everybody was doing a version of that song.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just to have that is just amazing in and of itself. I can't believe you fucking said Sinister Purpose. I cannot believe that.
Why?
Because no, I'm like, how I had that in my pocket. I'm like, no one knows.
I know the album.
I know, but
I'm well acquainted with it. I'm just not.
but I'm glad that it hit you like that.
Here's the thing: with bands like this, here's the thing. It's like you get these great compilations. You get those are the things that you start with,
Yeah.
and then over time you realize that. And I obviously didn't have a lot of I didn't have their full records. But bands like the Zombies, like the Guess Who, the Rascals, bands of that ill, like Loving Spoonful, they all made like several albums, and but only a few had the hits, So
Yeah.
you were just kind of like, this one has 3 hits on it, that one only has 2. You
Yeah.
want it all to be together. So there's a lot of that, going on. Like when you first get into music, you just want it all. Like you want
Yeah.
the whole package.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you got to get that album now. I got to get that album. And it's like, but then some of the songs aren't as good. And Creedence is, but I would argue that they're deep cuts are just as strong,
Yeah, I was
as
gonna
the
say that the good thing about Creedence is you can
yeah,
get one of their middle 5 any one of their middle 5 albums,
yeah,
chop off the first and the last one, and you're gonna know a lot of the songs, and then the other stuff is just as accessible. So it's not like we said with other bands, they don't go off into strange territories and try different things. You've got
yeah.
the traditional stuff in there, you got the rhythm and blues, and then you have their stuff that you know what it is? Their stuff melds so well
Mhm.
with the stuff that they're doing. So it doesn't, when they do covers, it doesn't sound like they're doing covers because their stuff has a similar
That's
vibe
right.
to it. Although, even though it's not that traditional sounding per se, or some of them are,
Mhm.
like Run Through the Jungle and some of the, like
It's
they do some
seamless.
of that stuff. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
it really does. Exactly. These albums flow, and it's like, oh, the covers don't stick out like, oh, they're doing a cover now. This is a updated version of this song.
Mhm.
It's like, no, their stuff just kind of, it all just kind of melds together. So when you're listening to it, it's like one experience that you don't get taken out of because the covers sound out of place. It's like their
Mhm.
other stuff matches it. It's not like Guns N' Roses doing Live and Let Die. It's like, okay, you can tell there's,
Yeah.
that's something
That's,
different,
like,
you know?
out of the
Yeah,
pocket, like, kinda thing.
exactly. But they're doing it, but you're getting taken out because
Well
you know that what it is.
well, that in itself is I would say that s there are several artists who know how to pick just the right songs to
Yeah,
fit that grouping. Like I can think of, like Clapton did on Layla. Like he picked
sure.
all the right covers to do. Like Have You Ever Loved a Woman, and
Yeah.
and stuff like the only song that really kind of stood out was Little Wing, which Dwayne Allman wanted to do.
Hmm.
Because Jimi Hendrix had just died, so they just wanted to pay tribute to. So that was probably the song that stood out the most. But yeah, but certain artists know how to do that, and that's not. I don't. I wouldn't. I would think that's probably not the easiest thing to do.
Hmm.
Because here we have a certain sound going on. What songs would really? What can we put in there to kind of, or are they building that sound around those covers?
Yeah.
Which way are they going here? So it's interesting to to see or to know exactly what's going on inside their head
Yeah.
in that process. So yeah, so
Yeah, like I said, it's probably some stuff that they had always been doing. So it's kind of like,
right.
much like the Doors, the covers that they did was stuff that they had been performing
Hmm.
live already. So it was just natural to, oh, hey, okay, we've got this stuff we can do, and we'll kind of fill out the album with it.
Right.
Also, CCR Creedence played at Woodstock.
Yes.
Oddly enough, and a lot of people are surprised about it because they're not on the soundtrack.
Mm.
Because John Fogerty was like, he thought their performance was subpar. And they also had the dubious pleasure of following the Grateful Dead, who played for
Oh
hours and
goodness.
hours. And John Fogerty said by the time we got on stage, everybody was asleep. Like
Goodness.
all the audience, everyone was, because they played for so long through the night that by the time we actually took the stage,
Yeah,
there
they
was
were
just
one of the
there was just
first bands to
bodies.
sign on, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken. Right? Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
he said there was just bodies all over the place, just laying around. So he kind of wasn't happy with it. So it's odd that you hear about Woodstock, but Creedence kind of yeah, he said, nah, our set wasn't that great to begin with, and
Mm.
we went on, and it was like so late at night or so early in the morning that people were sleeping, and
Wow.
so you could tell he's definitely, I don't know if he's a perfectionist. I think he's got a certain point of view or a certain way he wants to do things. I don't think he's not a perfectionist like a Brian Wilson. I think he's a guy that knows what needs to get done and will do it. And unfortunately, he's not afraid to step on some toes to get it
Right,
done.
because you certainly couldn't say that about the music, and it can be
Yeah.
very dirty.
Yeah.
It's not always perfect, but that's what makes it good, though. It's like
Yeah,
the
there's not deep
perfections.
arrangements or anything. There's not
Right.
experimental
Yeah.
choices. It's in your face. You understand what you're listening to, but it's
It's
so
raw. It's yeah.
damn catchy. It's
Yep.
so damn good that
That's right.
uh yeah, I don't know if you could forgive him, but
Well, you need to take the
he's
art from the artist, and
yeah, we say that a lot.
we
Sometimes
do say that a lot. Yes, we do. And
yeah,
it's a
sometimes
shame.
these situations aren't good, or some of these people aren't
Right.
so nice, but what they give, that's got to be a certain side to them, right? That's got to be an
Yeah.
aspect of their personality.
I suppose you
Um,
have to be a little bit of a prick sometimes to get to get the focus, to get the work done. That these songs wouldn't be what they are if they weren't. But on the other hand,
yeah,
there is something to be said of treating, I don't know. Who knows?
People,
I mean, who knows? I mean, and who knows if the band was, they were belligerent at the time. We don't really know. We're not in the
yeah,
room with them. We don't know what really went down. We're only, commenting on what people have written over the years, and
that's what we
uh,
do.
that's what we do.
That's what we do.
But that's the thing, though. It's like we never really know what the
Yeah.
reasons are. But you know what I mean. So it's we
Yeah,
can't
you
really
gotta take it in its
we can't really
totality.
crucify these
No,
guys too much.
that's what I'm
So right.
trying not to, but I'm also trying to see the other side of,
That's right.
these other band members wanted some more creativity, but in the beginning, like I said, not to beat it into the ground, but in the beginning, it was made clear that this is how it was going to be. So it
Mhm.
wasn't much of a surprise, but it shouldn't have been surprising that they wanted to expand
Yeah.
on their own. But Fogerty was single minded in his determination to drive forward and drive this project through because he was, I'm not
Well,
going
I
back.
think he a lot of time he was thinking like a producer. I think, obviously, because he probably
Yeah,
didn't see that in them. You know,
yeah,
so prove me
he,
prove
he
me wrong
yeah, no,
situation, and they obviously couldn't. So
he was like De Niro in Heat. I'm
yeah,
never going back. I'm never going back. Right? He wasn't going back to being a regular job
yeah,
type thing. He's like this,
yeah,
So I think that might have been the driving force too. Of we have to succeed.
hmm
We don't have there's no choice for us but to succeed because the alternative is not acceptable.
right,
So I'm going to take control. I'm going to see this thing through. And you guys, we're a part of it, but I'm going to be a larger part. I'll do the heavy lifting. I'm going to do it because it's what needs to get done, and it's the best way to do it. And yeah, like I said, he was absolutely right. So for me, I'm going to give you took Sinister Purpose, so we'll call that a tie, which is good. I said earlier Lodi. I just love Lodi. It's just kind of
yeah,
a meandering kind of on the road type song, like a drifter thing. I think that's when they're at their best. And then a deep cut is Melina,
hmm
which I think Melina is on Chronicle, but Melina I like. And then Long as I Can See the Light.
yeah, great song.
Great vocals, got the saxophone. Again, a different
Yeah,
kind of a different, more of a jazzy, more soulful take. But Fogerty's vocals, we didn't really talk about that. He can handle it. He could wail. He's got that, like that kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
thing. He could do the scratchy stuff like Traveling Band. He was really adept at putting himself into those covers and making them authentic and
creating,
and not trying to using his strengths, but not trying to change them into something else. And
mhm,
like you said, that's why it blended so well because his other stuff, he could sing tender stuff, he could sing ballady stuff, and he could go with the up tempo with the best of them, and get dirty and grungy, you
yeah,
know,
hmm
which to his credit, the guy had tools and he knew how to use them,
yeah.
and
He
that's what
developed
we
those
got.
tools well over
Yeah,
time. It's too bad the rest of the band couldn't keep up.
yeah. Wow, holy
But
shit,
I don't know. I mean, like, but that's obviously,
they couldn't keep
what
up.
he thought, right? I mean, we said it, but
He just didn't want to give out. He didn't want to give out any, and he didn't want to cede any of that control over. He's like, what, this was a case of it ain't broke, don't fix it. So why would we?
mhm,
But sure, you want to do it, sure, do it. You're going to do it without me, though. Good.
yeah,
You want to write you want to do it. Go ahead. I dare you. And that was their unfortunate legacy. Would be that final album, and then Fogerty would go dark. He would put a solo album out right after, I think, called John Fogerty and the Blue Ridge Rangers. Then he would go dark until 85, until Center Field, and then he would kind of come back into the public consciousness again. People were waiting for him. They were waiting to, John Fogerty came back and again, but he wasn't playing his hits until he got the screws put to him by some of his musical pals. I think Dylan or somebody else
mhm,
said, you got to do it. You got to do it. And then he did. And now he tours incessantly. He's like tours like year round. His children are part of his band. His children are really great musicians. They have a daughter and a son that are in the band as well. And they're pretty good. So all is well. It's one of those great bands, like we said, that didn't change music because they changed their sound, right? The Beatles changed music just because of their innovations and the way they
mhm,
changed things. Creedence changed music because they didn't change. because they
Right.
just
Well, they
stayed
carried
so
it on.
they just stayed so prolific, right? Their
Mhm.
output of material was so consistent and so great that that's what gave people 4 years worth of just hit after hit after hit after hit that you don't know what the hell your head. I can't imagine your head must have been spinning in those 4 years from the output that they were just achieving.
Yeah.
And like I said, all
Didn't they just put something out? What? Another
yeah,
album?
like
Go to the
almost
record
like yeah,
store.
you know what? Just think of the singles. You probably can't even keep track of the albums that they were on because you just keep putting out singles.
No,
Hit
that's
number
right.
two, number two,
Yeah.
number two, number three, number two, number seven, number eight, number 11, like they were just constantly on the charts for 4 years. So it's a really an amazing tale of an amazing band that had a very short shelf life, but you would never know it. I
Mhm.
think that's the moral of the story is they accomplished in 4 years what most bands don't accomplish in 10, 15, or 20,
That's
to be
true. And
honest.
the music, that
And the
music
music is there.
will never be, it's timeless. It
Absolutely.
would always carry forward into the future. There's still bands doing it now, playing that type of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, and I really hope that it stays like that. I mean, there
Yeah.
people want to change it so much and they want to do something different with it, but for the most part, I like the going back and hearing that, people carrying that torch. I think it's
Yeah.
important
Yeah. And it's a
because it is
special
important
moment in
music.
time. Yeah. A
It
special
is
moment in
important
time for
music.
music.
Yeah.
Yeah. That,
Yep.
that they
Mhm.
were doing something that everybody else was into the psychedelic thing. And Creedence was, as part of that scene, was decidedly outside, which made them very unique and gave us
Right.
this great musical catalog. So we're going to recommend, as we're going to wrap it up, just go to your favorite streaming provider, look up Chronicle, Creedence Clearwater Revival. It's 20 songs, and you start there, and there's plenty more where that came from, and we will tell you Sinister Purpose is not on Chronicle. So you'll need to go to the album to listen to that. We're really going hard on that song. So you're going to need to go outside of Chronicle for Sinister Purpose. But it's going to be worth it. It's oh my God, this music is just so great and so worth your time, which is why after thinking about doing an album, like we can't, we just need to talk about their whole legacy because
The
it
output, yeah.
was so unique and so short, but so intense and in depth. So that's going to do it for Creedence Clearwater Revival. Like I said, go to Spotify, check out Chronicle, their 20 greatest hits. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. As always, we're there. And also we're on YouTube. So if you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and give us a like and a subscribe. That will help us build our channel and build our legacy, our podcasting legacy, as it were, as well. So that will do it for Eric. This has been Dean. We will see you on the flip side.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast and on Twitter at 3324p to join the conversation.